Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of NBA HoopBall, the pregame show. A lot of great things to cover. We have a 9-game slate, a whole bunch of wackiness going on as we prepare for the All-Star weekend. You know, that's where those knick-knack injuries are coming out. You got your favorite players probably listed as questionable or doubtful. I hate to say it, right? But, you know, it's happening. And
happens.
yeah, you know, it's just an extra day you can have off before the nice long break that the guys get over the All-Star weekend. So without further ado, I'm joined by my main man, Alan. How are you doing tonight, man?
Doing great, man. Happy to be here with you. We got a really fun show set up for y'all today. It's going to be unique, a little different from what we've done in the past. But yeah, man, I'm excited. What do we got on deck for us today?
Well, so pretty much, you know, we're doing a little differently today. We're just going to highlight the injury report, you know, go over those guys who are already listed as out, give you a quick recap and give you any updated information on guys that may have been listed as questionable or doubtful or just ruled out completely as of today. And then we're just going to go over 5 guys that we think are just, you know, potential streamers, ones that you can kind of lock in to get that bump in those categories or that point production, you know, depending on your league that you can use right before the All-Star weekend. So with that said, you want to take us in, Alan, and just kind of tell us what the injury report's looking like?
Yeah, so we're just going to run through up to the moment everyone that we know is out right now and who's questionable. And then from there, we're just going to go back and forth a little bit. So let's start off with who we know is out. We know that Toronto, they are dealing with health and safety protocols right now. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, and Patrick McCaw are all out. We know that Kawhi Leonard, let's start with people who are out. Marcus Morris has been ruled out for this game on the Clippers side. For Detroit, Jeremy Grant has been ruled out in this game. Josh Jackson has been ruled out as well. In New York, we know that Derrick Rose has been ruled out for this game, where we have Elfrid Payton and Frank Ntilikina as game time decisions. In Denver, we have Paul Millsap out with a knee issue, JaMychal Green out with his shoulder, Gary Harris, the adductor, Campazzo with health and safety protocols, you know, the usual fare there. Domantas Sabonis at the moment is questionable with a sore left ankle. Jeremy Lamb is questionable with a sore left knee. We know that in Memphis, Grayson Allen has been ruled out with a concussion. In Miami, Jimmy Butler is questionable with a right knee issue, and Bam Adebayo is also questionable with left knee tendonitis. For New Orleans, JJ Redick is out with an illness, and Zion Williamson just recently came across the timeline, is doubtful with a toe issue. OKC side, we just know that Al Horford's resting in this game, so he's going to be out. Derek White, Rudy Gay, Devin Vassell, and LaMarcus Aldridge are all out for the San Antonio side. Warriors have ruled out Steph Curry and Draymond Green for this one. Kelly Oubre is questionable. And circling back to the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard was the other injury note. Sorry. Came into this game listed questionable with back tightness, but he has been ruled in. So a lot of guys are on this injury report today. A lot of interesting, notable names, some star players like Steph Curry. We know he's going to be playing in the All-Star game this Sunday. He's been ruled out in advance. Domantas Sabonis could be another guy like that, who's also, you know, he was able to play last game, but maybe second night of a back-to-back, he gets some maintenance. And then, you know, like just in general, we're just making sure that it's quite possible that these other teams with some of their more significant players, having them questionable coming into this, maybe want to take advantage, get one extra day of the upcoming week off that they're going to have. So a lot of guys that are out. It really just makes for, it's tough to have season-long fantasy analysis with all that kind of stuff. So it's best that we're going to focus on streaming today. And hopefully we can give you guys some good suggestions to plug into your lineups before they all lock in the next hour. So as the show goes on, you know, Marcus and I, we're going to go back and forth, some of our favorite targets. And then we'll make sure to keep you all up to date, too, on the breaking news. And then, of course, we'll also get to your questions once we've sort of highlighted the main guys that we're paying attention to. So do you want me to start, or do you want to go with your first name on your list of top streamers for tonight's slate?
You can go ahead and start us off, man. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, my favorite streamer on the night, and maybe it's cheating a little bit because I have a vetted interest in seeing what his role may be maybe after the All-Star break, but it's DeAnthony Melton. He is getting that chance to get to 25 minutes at the shooting guard spot without Grace and Allen, as has been the case all year. We know how it goes with Memphis, that when they have their full slate of guys, he tends to be like almost out of the rotation entirely. But I mean, he's been playing really, really well over his last couple of games. Monster performances, particularly in his last game where he went for 20 points and I believe 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 3-pointers, a couple steals in there. He's a defensive stats specialist, but he's capable of chipping in enough boards and assists and threes across the board. He's my favorite target. Not even just, maybe even just for like, a short-term streaming candidate. Like even tonight, of all the guys that we have to go through, he might have the best impact tonight, and there's incentive to perhaps maybe he could take this role from Grayson Allen after the break because of this really strong play out of him. So I think he's worthwhile to stream tonight, but even hold through the next week off. Do you have him on your list? Was he someone that you were thinking of?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm so sold on Melton. I didn't have him on my list. I have him on my team. I grabbed him last week and I have not held off. And he's been, that one game, the game before that you mentioned, he had 4 steals in that game with about 14 points. And I will say I was a little worried, right? Because it was about 3 games ago now. He only got the 3 minutes, which was weird. I think obviously the coach realized that wasn't the move. Melton should be out there. He's too good not to be in. Since then, he's played about 20-plus minutes in every single game. And, I agree with you. I think Melton is one of those guys. Man, he has so much value. He's such a unique player. He can do it on both sides of the ball. He doesn't really hurt you anywhere. Yeah. He's kind of like that Rashawn Holmes. He's like Christian Wood before he got established. You go team to team. You want to see these guys get the extended run. Mm-hmm. And once they finally do, it's like, boom, it's a fantasy gem. So I definitely think that tonight, especially leading into the break with Grayson Allen possibly out, he could get some extended run. But most importantly, like you said, Alan, I think it's a great opportunity for him to kind of establish himself as a guy who needs to get 20, 25 minutes. And let's be honest, between overtaking Grayson Allen and getting some minutes from Dylan Brooks, he definitely deserves it more. I feel like he makes more of a positive impact on the game. So he's definitely a player you want to have tonight, but you want to have him if he starts seeing 20, 25 minutes because he can do a lot of damage in that limited time and can possibly push up to 30. Who knows? So,
and like you said, we've been down this road before. My expectations are in check because we know that he hasn't, he's gotten these spurts. The Grizzlies have guys hurt all the time. Mm-hmm. He's had these moments, but it's more than just the box score with him. He's a really good defender in real life. He is a solid secondary creator in real life. He has value for this team. It's really weird that he's in this situation where he's kind of like the third guard behind Desmond Bane, even, who I believe is still starting without Grayson out, even though Melton's getting more minutes off the bench. But yeah, this is sort of a hoping that something more comes out of it type of situation. You have nothing to lose by holding on to him throughout the break, and you have a lot to gain by playing him tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, what about you? Who's a guy on your list that you're looking at?
Well, let me just preface this and say no one on my list is going to top DeAnthony Melton. That's me being biased and just thinking he's that good. But I think for a nice streamer of a guy who's probably on your waiver wire, you can probably pick up and get a really solid game and who's, similar to Melton in the sense they might be worth holding just on the, second half to see what happens at the trade deadline. Is definitely Isaiah Roby. So that's my guy for the night because he's got a very unique game and a unique fantasy skill set as well. He plays a 4-5 dual position eligibility. He's one of those guys who can just do a little bit of everything across the board, right? He has occasional off-shooting nights, but he's not really all that inefficient, and he can get you the D numbers and steals and blocks. He's actually up the assists as of recently. 2 games ago, he got 7, and, obviously the rebounds are there. He can hit threes. So he's a really dynamic fantasy player, and the reason I like him most tonight is we've all been seeing this. Anytime there's a back-to-back, Al Horford is going to be sitting on one of those. And Roby is the guy you want to fire up. He's pretty much a lock. He does well in limited minutes, and even when he gets that extended time, extended usage, he plays even better. So he's definitely one of those guys, if he's on your waiver wire and you need that all-around production, I would definitely grab him. The reason I say he's worthwhile having even after the All-Star break is, we're creeping up to the trade deadline, right? It's going to be in about 2 weeks' time, so that's about the equivalent of 2 matchups. And if you have Roby and he's still producing for you, that's like a borderline 10 or 12 team guy. and you have him while Horford gets moved. Because I'd be surprised if Al Horford's in a Thunder uniform after the break. They're notorious at having guys kind of showcase their skills and potential suitors place their bid and then trading them off. And I expect no difference there with Al Horford. So, and once they do, I mean, it's the Roby show. I think he's a solidified 5. He plays 4-5, so he can play in there even when Baisley's off the floor, or he can be the full-time center. So he's got a really good game, and I think he's another one of those guys. It's like Milton has a lot of buzz around him. Roby has been serviceable, but he's probably on your waiver somewhere, and he could be an impact player for sure tonight and probably going forward on the later half of the season.
Yeah, I like that suggestion. He wasn't on my list just because I put mine together right before Al Horford was ruled out, but he makes total sense to stream tonight, as it always has been whenever Horford sits. And he does have similar upside to Melton in the situation that Horford does get moved. I'm not sure if that happens this year. I mean, it's possible, but it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. And, just for reference, like when Roby starts, he's usually going to give you close to 12 points per game, get you about 6 rebounds, a couple of assists. The defensive stats aren't really there for him, and the three-pointers kind of hit and miss, but he does it on decent percentages and low turnovers too. So he's like providing a very classic big man stat set. If those are the sort of categories you're in need for, it's a good chance that he'll produce tonight. And the Thunder are going up against the Spurs. Yeah, so they're definitely going to need his size to match Jakob Poeltl out there. It'll be interesting to see how he performs.
Definitely. Absolutely. So as far as that second player, who are you looking at there, Alan?
All right. Well, next, I'll jump to another guy on my list. There's 2 I want to get to, but I want to wait and see if we learn more on the injury report going on. So I'm going to start with someone who has been pretty consistent for a while now. Had an off game last night, but still one of my favorite streamers at the moment, and that's Derrick Jones Jr. For Portland Trailblazers. He's been in that starting lineup all year, and the minutes. It's not that he's jumping into more minutes necessarily, but ever since Harry Giles, the backup center, has been out of the lineup dealing with I think it's a calf issue. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he's been out. And since then, Derrick Jones Jr. and Robert Covington have been sort of splitting the backup center minutes, and it's really made an impact in Jones's blocks output. He's been averaging 1.8 blocks per game in those 8 games without Giles. It's been pretty consistent across the board. Last night, he kind of had a stinker. Didn't play a whole lot. I think he got into foul trouble. But before that point, he had been blocking close to 2 shots per game. And throw that in with close to 10 points, 6 rebounds, a 3.5, getting a little involved in the steals game. He's got a very 9-cat friendly game as long as he's getting those backup center minutes. The percentages are also really high as a result. Just more opportunities at him getting it to the rim. I mean, he's still more of a perimeter-oriented player, but he has been very effective getting opportunity in this role, and he's still available in plenty of Yahoo leagues. I think that, the ride sort of ends once the Blazers start to get anyone back, if it's Yusuf Nurkic, if it's Giles, or even CJ McCollum. But until then, I think that Jones has got a lot of value, especially with shot blocking, which is a stat that's pretty hard to come by. So if that's a category specifically that you could use for tonight's games, he might be the best streaming option for that category of anyone available. What do you think of DJJ? Was he someone you were on the lookout for?
Definitely, yeah. I've always loved his game. He's always, anytime you have those athletic, versatile players who can bring the D stats, kind of put in the 3, not really hurt you anywhere, right? I mean, he's even upped his free throw percentage, to about 70 over the last few games, and it's unlimited attempts, a little under 2 a game, so he's not killing you there, and that's still a pretty good percentage. He's shooting about 60%. From the field, which is solid, on about 6 attempts a game. And then, as you said, Alan, he's giving you almost 2 blocks a game, right? Yeah. And half a steal. So he can really bring the defense. He's cashing in from 3. He's probably a guy, I know at least in my league, who was probably picked up and just held, right? Because the Blazers have been dealing with injuries. He's getting that run, and he's proven his worth, right? So they're continuing to run him out there. He plays well next to Covington. They play a similar kind of game, in fact. So, I love DJJ. I'm a little sad I missed out on that train. But if he's out there, I mean, he's another one of those guys that, obviously it's kind of different than Roby and Melton in the sense that his role will diminish as players get healthier. But right now and in the foreseeable future, you can pick him up and kind of hold him until he really tails off and his production is no longer there, sure, you can drop him and move on, but he can really have some good value overall if that's what you need. So I definitely would go and grab DJJ for tonight and probably in the short term, definitely.
As in, like most of the players we're going to talk about tonight, I think Melton and Roby are the two potential exceptions for perhaps jumping into long-term value down the road. Most of these guys are going to be sort of a single game situation, but you never know. I mean, like that's the same deal with Melton. It's not guaranteed. It's mostly just like enough good play at this level might elevate his role rest of the season. For DJJ, it's coming more out of necessity than it is like, him earning more opportunity. I don't think they want to roll him out as the backup center or at times, but that's where he's at right now. And he's absolutely a great source of blocks in that respect.
Yeah.
So who's next on your list? Who are we looking at?
So kind of taking it from, as you said, people who have solid value right now in the foreseeable future, right? Maybe in the long term with Roby and Melton, and now, kind of in that same tier as DJJ. The next guy I had was Nick Claxton, who's been a buzzy name, right? And the reason I had him is just because with the time and production he's getting, he's doing so much in limited minutes. I mean, even last game, he had 17 points and 8 rebounds in about 17 minutes, right? And the defense wasn't there, but he brings it just about every game. He's, mainly catching lobs and, just shooting high percentage shots. So the field goal percentage is through the roof, right? He's averaging about 75, 80% over the last few games. But the thing that's going to be interesting is, obviously, when you have Jeff Green back, you have Kevin Durant back, you have to assume his role will diminish. But as he gets more comfortable in playing with those guys, you have to wonder if he starts to take more minutes than DeAndre Jordan, right? Because as we're kind of seeing right now, the Nets are dealing with a lot of injuries. But you never really see Claxton and DeAndre playing on the court at the same time. So he's kind of filling in at that same center role, that, kind of rim runner, catch an alley-oop lob guy, just as DeAndre Jordan is. And I think as he continues to show his versatility and athleticism, he can really get you 15, 16 minutes and do damage, and that could push up even to 20 or so, right? So it's a lofty expectation, but I really think Nick Claxton for now, grab him, hold him until these guys start to get back, and it's really obvious that he's getting limited play and he's a non-factor. But, I mean, he can bring it every game. He's not even that terrible from the line. He's getting you about 15 or 16 points in limited minutes. He's really bringing the defense. He's shooting high percentage shots. He's rebounding at a solid rate. And I'm just curious to see once they realize with what they have, are they going to continue to roll him out there? Because they're going to need all of their tools to be an effective team, all of the roll and bench guys. And if you remember, Nick Claxton was not playing when they had everybody healthy and out on the floor, right? He kind of came after the fact, once Katie was out, and then Jeff Green eventually started missing games. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out once they have a healthy team. But Nick Claxton is another guy I really like. So
yeah, I like him too, as more like as a guy to just sort of evaluate as the year goes on. It'll be interesting to see too, because I believe he was hurt to start the year.
Yeah.
So we've never even seen an opportunity for him to get meaningful minutes like this. Even last year, he was behind Jared Allen, who was behind DeAndre Jordan. But I think it's clear when you watch these games that he is not only. I mean, he has that athleticism. He's versatile too. He can switch onto perimeter-oriented players. He provides things that Jordan just frankly can't. So it'll be very interesting to see his rest of season outlook once the team is healthy, and whether or not Steve Nash will pull the trigger and just say look, I'm just going to roll with the hot hand here. And look, I mean, I'm not holding my breath on that one, because he had Jared Allen in house and he didn't get started until he was being auditioned to get shipped off elsewhere. So if Allen couldn't do it, I don't know if Claxton can, but that will be something to monitor for sure. I mean, I'm hoping so, because we've seen so far he's got that per minute production. He can do a little bit of everything, so he's pretty interesting.
Definitely.
So I guess I'll move on to the next guy on my list for tonight's games. I'm thinking that we should take, my next guy, I'm debating between two guys that are on the same team here. It's on the Warriors, because we got Steph out and we got Draymond out tonight. So it's going to be a little bit of throwback to the, I don't know what you call last year's Warriors, but that's who we're working with tonight. The guy that I want to really hone in on, Kent Bazemore got the start last night, and he had a really nice 9-category league line with the defensive stats and 3-pointers. But I'm kind of interested to see what Damian Lee does tonight. He was a very interesting guy last year when most of the main people were out, particularly because Kelly Oubre Jr. might also be out here. There could be avenues for Lee to not only get involved just scoring on the perimeter. I mean, I don't think the Warriors want to necessarily run Brad Wanamaker out there for like 30 plus minutes. I'm interested in Lee's stats that he was really productive when he got a lot of playing time last year, both in 3-pointers. He was a pretty above average rebounder for a guard, a little Josh Hart like, gets involved in steals as well. He's pretty interesting to me. Again, he's probably going to be coming off the bench, even if with Oubre out, just because you got Wiggins in that lineup. Probably going to be starting Wanamaker, and you're probably going to see Bazemore and Eric Paschall round out that rotation. But Lee, to me, is the guy that I feel like has just if he can get himself up to 30 minutes tonight, I could see a pretty productive outing from him. I mean, what about you? Do you see someone on the Warriors that you'd prefer?
That's a good one. I went with his counterpart. I did go with Kent Bazemore. I just love his game. Those guys who are just going to give you a little bit of everything. Just like you said, last night he played solid minutes. He had good production. He gave you the 12 points. He chipped in a few threes. He gave you the steal, gave you the block, in typical Kent Bazemore fashion, right? As we so know and love. So, I mean, he's a guy who has the established value. Once he gets to run, he's going to produce in it. But I like that you brought up Damian Lee because, I mean, we're kind of quick to forget now that the Warriors had that just hideous, just very wacky season. And now they at least have Steph. They at least have Dre. They're looking somewhat like the Warriors, right? Everything runs through those guys. But Damian Lee was one of, like, the premier players on that team. He was a solid fantasy guy. Once he got the run, he always produced. He's kind of like a Josh Hart in a sense. Like, he's a good rebounding guard. He can get you good rebounds, chip in threes, a high scorer, and, give you a modest production with the steals and the blocks as well. Last game, he did okay, right? But at the same time, he only played 18 minutes. I figure tonight he could push up to 30. And with that in mind, we've seen Damian Lee all last year. He is a solid fantasy player once he gets the run. So I'm kind of, Alan, I'm with you there. If I had to make a pick, I definitely like Damian Lee more. There's just something about Bazemore that says, oh, you're rolling from last night. You could get a higher usage in minutes. So that's where my mind goes. But Damian Lee, you got to forget. He can.
It's a good point. Baze is going to get the first opportunity, certainly, and he has the more varied defensive stats to his game. It's just that I like I like Lee's percentages a little bit more too. But I mean, look, Bazemore's if you're going to choose between those two, they offer sort of the same game. You figure that Bazemore's going to get first crack, so he's probably the best guy to roll with if you're looking for the 3-and-D stuff. But I'm high on Lee. I rolled with him a lot last year, and I think that he might find some opportunities to maybe even get involved in the playmaking a little bit tonight. Just again because Brad Wanamaker is not the best.
And Bazemore might not be there. If you go to pick up a Bazemore for the reasons we just mentioned, he might be already scooped up in one of your competitive leagues. So Damian Lee is easily the next guy you'd want to grab up with all the. So I agree with you there for sure.
All right, well, let's move on to the next guy for tonight. Who else are we looking at?
Okay, so this guy is actually another, this is kind of a dark horse. This is kind of a name. I'd be shocked if you had this one, but another guy with injury, but who's just kind of showing signs, is another OKC Thunder player, and that is Ty Jerome, actually.
I had him on. I almost put him on my 5. But you know what? No, that's I like that. Well, he's been interesting. He's sort of popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, he popped up out of nowhere. And, I mean, it's funny because on the 24th against San Antonio, he didn't even play. And then after that, he went 22, 30, and 29 minutes last game. So I don't know what happened that made them, say, hey, we want to run him out there and give him a look. But he's been solid over the last few games. First game against Atlanta, he had 9 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals with only 1 turnover. The following game, 15 points, 2 assists. And last night he had 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. So he's just giving you that overall, fair amount of value, good scoring, good percentages. He's doing it on low turnovers, and he can chip in a good amount of assists too if you need that at the point guard position. And once again, he's a guy, right? This Thunder team, they have their guys that they're going to run with, the guys that they may ship off, the guys who aren't even playing like Trevor Ariza, who are just kind of on the team, right? So at one point or another, especially with the trade deadline creeping up, you're going to have guys who start to see more run. And, I mean, Ty Jerome's a guy, I'm not saying he's a must-hold, but if you get him and he's producing for you, I'd just keep an eye out on it. He's not a guy you have to have on your team. He's not like a must roster, but definitely throw him on your watch list after getting him for the night if you can, if that's what you need. And he could be someone, at this rate, as you said, Alan, coming out of nowhere. Maybe that's who they go to. Maybe they start to run with him. Maybe they kind of experience between him and, Theo Maledon, and, we'll see about it. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, he's been playing – he popped off and started playing 30 minutes about 3 games ago. Yeah. The guy that's out of the rotation that's allowing him to jump into that role immediately, though, is Hamidou Diallo. He's been out nursing the groin issue. So it'll be interesting to see where Jerome fits in once Diallo's back, because, he and Maledon are sort of like your traditional point guards on that roster, because Shea is so positionally versatile. You can find enough minutes for all 3 of those guys. But Diallo's been playing a good amount. He's been a very, very defensive-oriented shooting guard in their rotation. Jerome's a good stream tonight. It is solid if you're looking for threes and assists. The assists in particular are an area of strength from his in college. This is sort of the most run we've really gotten to see from him, though. And he's been pretty good in his first 3 games. So it'll be interesting to see, too, with Al Horford out tonight. Maybe that'll present more playmaking opportunities as well between, because Horford kind of gets that done here and there in that respect. But, yeah, that's a good name. I was thinking about throwing him on, but, you beat me to him. So I have a couple other guys. I know we want to get some of the questions, too, in the chat, and it looks like that we've already got some of the HoopBall staff answering there as well. But, yeah, as always, guys. But here I've got – There's a few other names we should that I feel like we should highlight. We should talk about what's going on in New York with their point guard situation, and also we should talk about Detroit, who is they're hemorrhaging bodies right now.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting on updates, because it appears that we have game time decisions in New York too in regards to Elfrid Payton, who's missed the last few games with a hamstring issue, and Frank Ntilikina, who injured his quad in last night's game, or their last game out. Obviously, the name you guys all know that we're talking about as the potential streamer tonight, and he could hit big if the everything falls right for him. Is Emmanuel Quickly. He's probably the most talented point guard on their roster, at least from a scoring perspective. The guy cannot be stopped. He has one of the best floaters in the league already. He has just been a revelation. He's just not getting the playing time. Even when Derrick Rose and Elfrid Payton were out, Frank Ntilikina jumped from not being in the rotation at all to starting over Quickly, because Tom Thibodeau hates rookies.
Tom Thibodeau.
Just as simple as that. I appreciate the consistency there. It makes me feel secure. I know what to expect from that guy. But look, Quickly is looking at the prospect of being the only active point guard. Tom Thibodeau might not have any choice but to play him for 30 minutes. And look, frankly, even in his last game, he was nuts. He had like 26 points or something, 6 threes, something to that degree. I mean, he's a great guy to target for points. It's just you're rolling the dice a little bit if Payton is ruled in. We already know how that setup works. If Payton's ruled in and he's playing, he's probably going to be playing 30 minutes, probably only 18 left for Quickly at that point, and he could still produce for you. But it's not I think that we've outlined some more secure guys to stream tonight than him. So he's the type of situation where I'm watching the game time updates quickly.
No pun intended.
Oh, man.
Hey, that's a good one, man.
I mean, I get what was not intentional.
Hey, the best ones aren't, So.
That's true. I appreciate that. But yeah, you want to make sure that you got him ready to go and see if Payton's ruled in or out. If Payton's out, and if Payton's out, I think you stream him Quickly tonight easily. Even if Ntilikina is in and he starts over him, I think he'll still play enough. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on there. Would you? So you're the resident Pistons fan here, right? Like you with Jeremy Grant out tonight with his quad issue and Josh Jackson out. we saw a lot of interesting names pop up in their last game out. Who do you see any one streamer that would make the most sense from that bunch to look at tonight?
Well, so here's the thing. So this is a known name, but it's kind of like the most known unknown in a sense, because this guy's probably still sitting on your waiver wire, and that is DSJ, Dennis Smith Jr. He triple-double last game, and I think he's still sitting on most waiver wires, right? Hasn't been picked up and is clearly benefiting with usage. I mean, he's running the point, right? Everything's flowing through him. I mean, obviously Mason Plumlee was probably drafted in your league, probably isn't someone just sitting around in a waiver, but someone like DSJ, he's really handling the load on offense. He's getting that big usage and burn, and he's someone the Pistons traded for. So obviously with DeLon Wright out, that helps him and the other guys out because he gets more touches, more usage. But honestly, I think he's a guy who could have some long-term value, not just for tonight, but if he gets run and he makes up for it. The percentages aren't great. I mean, we know that, but I mean, the guy who triple doubles and can get you some steals and other defensive numbers, that's pretty valuable, especially for just a streaming guy. So he's who I'd start with. I got to say, once you get to the front court, it gets a little there, because it's like, you have Svi Mikhailuk logging huge minutes. You have Wayne Ellington, when he feels like it, he's going to go 0 for 8 or he's going to hit 8 3-pointers. You just really never know how that's going to look, right? So I think that's just going to be dispersed amongst all of those guys. I think with any of those three, if they're available and you need threes and steals, you're going to get that from Ellington. You'll get it from Svi. Sekou DeMayo's kind of the all-around guy, but he just hasn't been there,
Is he starting in place of Grant, by the way, Demboya?
I think he was. I think it was starting, but it's more like you're starting, but, the bench guys and rotation guys are playing even more minutes. But I think he was. So, I like any of those guys, probably Wayne Ellington and Svi the most because they're really getting burned. And, Wayne Ellington was red hot, earlier on. So if he can catch fire, you know what you're getting from him. But to me, those are the most noteworthy guys. I'll throw in there Isaiah Stewart too. Just because, once Blake Griffin went and you got the front court kind of shared by he and Plumlee, he looks good. He's rebounding well. He's guaranteed to get you at least a block or two. And, he's a big man. He's doing it on good percentages. And, the Pistons, their key focus, right, in the second half is to develop Killian Hayes. But I don't think that's just going to be Hayes. I think that's just going to be all the younger players. They're going to, they're going to want to see what they have. And now is as good of time as any, with so many players out and just lacking players overall in depth to just start rolling guys out, your new draft picks and seeing what they got. But that's who I'm liking. Anything really stuck you?
No, you mentioned all the key names there, and I'm glad I went to you on it because, look, there's plenty of names to go over, and sometimes that can get that can make for a situation that's not ideal for streaming because none of these guys are necessarily except I think DSJ, like you identified, he's the best of that bunch because he's the point guard. He's got the more varied stat set. He has a bigger role on the team. But, a lot of these other guys are just kind of tougher to trust when the minutes are just the talent level is just at a point where it's like you're at a point of diminishing returns. It's tough to bet on one of them. But Dennis Smith is my guy on that list as well. So I think that, sounds like we've covered most of the big names. There's still other guys that I'm keeping tabs on in case the injury report breaks a certain way. But why don't we dive into some questions in the comments section? And by the way, if y'all have enjoyed what we've put out so far on the show so far, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for stuff like this going forward. Maybe some interesting content coming up during the All-Star break. I'm not saying that there's something in the works. I'm just saying there might be something in the works. So only one way to find out though, right?
Yes, sir.
Hit that little bell down there, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. So let's. I can't click on comments. Jack asked us about Nerlens Noel. You see that comment down there in the section? Asking about whether or not are you able to click on that to bring it up?
Absolutely. Sorry about that.
There we go. No, you're cool, man. You're cool. So Nerlens Noel, can he keep? So he's not a streamer anymore. He's past that point, for sure. He's more just filling a role as long as Mitchell Robinson is out. You're probably not going to pick him up. But do you think he can keep up a top 75 pace? I assume in 9 category leagues with Mitch Robinson coming back. Do you want to start off with that one, or do you want me to take it?
I can handle this pretty easy. The short answer is no. And here's why I say that. Mitchell Robinson is the center, right? Now, we've seen when Mitchell Robinson gets in foul trouble or is just not playing well, Noel will get the nod and just flat out outplay him, right?
Yeah.
He's bringing the stocks. Your perfect Noel game is going to be, well over 50%. He maybe gives you double-digit points, 8 or 9 rebounds, flirts with a double-double, and gives you about 4 or 5 stocks. That's going to be like your gem of a Noel game. The thing about Noel is he can do that just about every game, but the caveat is him getting the run. He's getting the run clearly because Mitchell Robinson is not there.
Mm-hmm.
When he's not getting the run, he's going to be your specialist. He's a guy who maybe gives you single-digit points and, like I said, probably gives you 3 stocks a game, and that's what you have him for. He's a specialist. Mm-hmm. If you need him to get you that in a matchup, he can be that guy you keep on your team similar to that of Dunk Robinson. If you just need that production in threes, it's worth a hole. But other than that, unless Nerlens is somewhere where he's logging 25, 30, and he is the marquee guy, he's just going to be limited in production. So,
Yeah, there's value in that, but top 75 is kind of a stretch.
Top 75 is a stretch. And trust me, I love Noel. He has a great game. I wish that for him too, but it won't happen in New York. He knows his role. He's filling in just as they need him to, and they appreciate him for that. But there's going to be no scenario where they don't play the younger Mitch Robinson and just say, Noel, we want you playing 30. You're unleashed all of a sudden. So
yeah, agreed. And just to follow up on the Knicks points in general, like Adam just noted in the comments, Frank Ntilikina and Elfrid Payton have been ruled into this game. So scratch your Emmanuel quickly streaming plans. We've outlined some safer options tonight.
Yeah, Thibodeau wasn't going to have it. He said, "You guys need to play. I'm not rolling this line over 30." So.
He got with Peyton. He's like, "Look, man, I cannot start this rookie.
Yep.
Don't make me do this. All right, like you can play. You got the week coming up to rest it off. Let's just get through this together." Yeah. Moving down on the list here, Doug. Streaming Ellington over Shake Milton in a 14-team 9-category league. The Sixers aren't playing tonight, so I would choose Ellington if we're just talking about tonight. I think Shake might be a better investment long term, but if you're looking for threes tonight, you're going with Ellington. Why don't we hit the question right below him, Kerm Skies, if we can pull him up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So looking to drop Justin Holiday soon with players returning for the Pacers. He's in a points league. Of the players available, he is Josh Richardson, Jalen Brunson, Sadiq Bey, Rubio, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jeremy Lamb. So I'll start with this. It'd be helpful to know, I guess, your points settings to know for sure. But just speaking about dropping Justin Holiday preemptively, I'm not sure if that's the move that you need to make yet, because the guys that are coming back, it's just one guy at the moment. It's Karis LeVert. TJ Warren's nowhere close. So first of all, LeVert doesn't have an official timetable. Like they say that they expect him back in the second half. They did not say they expect him back as soon as the second half starts. It is just coming up eventually, And more than that, we don't really know what LeVert's role is on this team. Justin Holiday is a forward, sure, but he's been playing an incredibly important role as a defensive specialist, capable of playing the 3 and moving down at the 4 too. He does things that LeVert necessarily can't do. I don't necessarily see Holiday phasing out, losing like his 30-minute role when LeVert's back in town. I see Jeremy Lamb as a more of a guy who is going to take a larger hit. Holiday will lose some minutes too, but I think that he still is going to have a role. He might even still start over LeVert for all we know. We don't know if there's going to be minutes limits with LeVert. We don't know if he's going to be more of a facilitator. Maybe he cuts into TJ McConnell's role a little bit. Might be a little unlikely that after McConnell robbed all those Cleveland Cavaliers players of all their possessions last night. But, LeVert's so versatile. He can get in on the floor in so many different ways. And I think that Holiday's defense gives him a step above your Jeremy Lambs, your Aaron Holidays to a degree. So I'm not necessarily a fan of the preemptive drop. Of course, you say right here, you have 1 point for every stat, -1 for field goal, -2 for turnovers, and +2 for steals and blocks. So you get a defensive stat bump with Justin Holiday, right? So don't make the preemptive drop now just because of that report we got on LeVert. It's a great report. I'm excited to see him back out there, but until we know a little bit more, not even about when he's returning, but at whose expense it's coming at, I think you can still stick with him. What about you, Marcus? How do you feel about him?
No, I mean, I'm with you. And the thing I want to ask, though, like, if maybe we could see a lineup, like, is Justin Holiday really the worst guy that you think you would want to drop? I mean, like, I'm not outing it. I'm just saying, for all the points you mentioned, he's still very, very productive. He's a guy you'd want to hold. I think that sounds like one of those situations where you have somebody coming out of the IR, you're getting all your guys back, and you have to drop somebody. But for somebody who's still doing well, and like you said, his value is clear cut. He's getting a run and playing really well at the moment. A nice 3-and-D guy. I don't think you need to drop him. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Jalen Brunson is on a roll, and Rubio, he's on a roll. And we know Malik Beasley's suspended for at least 10 more games, and we know D'Angelo Russell's still out for the foreseeable future. I would look at some other guys that I might drop to get one of those guys, if not both of them, because they're playing really well. And Brunson, I mean, his value just goes up when people are out, but he's even making a case while everyone's healthy, while Luka's on the floor, Porzingis is on the floor. So, I mean, those are some guys that really intrigue me who can be really valuable. But, I mean, I'm with you there. I don't think Justin Holiday needs to be dropped. And, like, I get it. Kerm said he's really just looking into the LeVert
report. Yeah.
And I mean, I get that. But they said LeVert could return this season, and that's very vague. That's meaning that you can play maybe a game, and that's probably a ways away. I think TJ Warren has a chance to be back before Karis LeVert, honestly. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would just ride out that production because he's playing well. But I do want to mention that if Rubio's available, he's looking real good. He had that great game last night where he almost had double digit assists. He's really looking like himself, that guy who was playing really well for Phoenix last year. So while he's hot and playing, I would kind of reevaluate who are the lower guys on your roster. And if you need, I mean, and he's a pretty good points player, right? Like, he's a pretty good points league because he's not the greatest in percentages, free throw or field goal, but that's a non-factor when you're looking at points. And he can get you about 35, 40 points when he's really on. So he might be a guy worthwhile. I definitely think so.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on that. And Kenji, I see your question. I want to get to it too. But real quick, you see that question from Pete Adams down there about dropping Cantor. Just to real briefly, just as like a follow-up to what we just talked about, I don't think you should drop Cantor yet because there's no timeline on Nurkic. I'm very against the notion of the preemptive drop in fantasy leagues. I think you have more to lose out than to gain by doing that. I mean, unless you're I don't know if you're saying that you're dropping Cantor for Nurkic, who's on your wire. If Nurkic is on the wire, yeah, I'd find a spot for him. But Cantor's still going to be doing everything that he's been doing with Cantor out until we know we have more certainty in these things. I'm not I'm not a fan of making those drops yet. As far as Kenji's question right above him, he was asking, and there's two interesting young guards. Rest of season outlooks for Saban Lee and DeAnthony Melton. Well, what's your take on Saban?
He's one of those guys who I give him credit. He, out of nowhere, jumped right in, got a larger role, and really produced. He played well. I really like his game. He's a nice 3-and-D guy. I mean, he can really fill it up points-wise. There's just so much uncertainty in Detroit. It's guys like this getting an opportunity due to injuries and everything. I mean, he had another good game last night. We were at 20 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, and a block. And he's really just giving you that all-around well-rounded effort. But, with no DeLon there, with Killian Hayes expected back, I mean, he's a great short stream guy. I mean, I'd add him in tonight. He's another one of those Detroit Pistons players you could consider to stream for sure. Probably one of the better options. But rest of season, I mean, it's not looking too good for him. He's filling in and earning his keep while he has the opportunity. But outside of that, it's just he's not one of the key guys they're focused on developing. I think Killian Hayes and guys like that really get the first nod there, especially with Dennis Smith Jr. So I think, he's just going to get lost in the shuffle. He'll have games like this, and anytime you see on that injury report, you have guys out in that backcourt with, DSJ, DeLon out. He's a good guy to pick up. But outside of that, he's just not giving you too much. And I think Melton's a clear favorite there, as, we kind of talked about earlier. So.
Yeah, we touched on Melton earlier, and I don't know, Kenji, what type of league setting you're in, but in general, just in projecting what's coming up next for Melton, like we touched on at the top of the show, really it's all going to come down to whether or not he makes a lasting impression on Taylor Jenkins during this stretch of play that he's on right now, because we've seen the story with him. For whatever reason, Jenkins does not see him as a rotation player of 25 minutes per game, which we all in the fantasy community are praying that that's the case. And I do think that there's merits as real on-court impact. He's a terrific defensive player. I think that if he continues to play at this level and helps Memphis get to some wins, it might create a dialogue in the coaching ranks in Memphis to maybe elevate him. So if he is holding on to a 25-minute role, maybe top 80, 75 range for him in a 9-category league. Like you said, 16-team 9-cat.
Yeah.
If you're capable of grabbing Melton now, I'd do it. Stream him tonight and hold him through the break. See what happens.
Well, and at the very least, if you don't really, I would ride out the production, but I'm saying he's a player you have. If you need a different fit, if you need to leverage that for a trade, you have all of those possibilities with just having someone that you just got, seemingly got for nothing. You picked him up off the waiver. So Melton, he's one of those guys that, kind of like a Noel and specialist, they can give you value and production in limited minutes and usage. So he can still be valuable. It's when he gets that chance, if he does, just like you said, Alan, he can push up to top 80, maybe even 75. So that's a guy you want on your team when he has that breakout. So
yeah, he can. He really can do it all. It's just it's all a matter of playing time. So I guess it looks like the questions are a little dry. If you guys want to drop another one in, that's cool. I guess parting thoughts on our streaming special here. Is there any names that we didn't touch on? Maybe guys that we were waiting to talk about, depending on whether or not anyone else gets ruled out that we have yet to see so far?
There was. I had one other guy, and this is kind of.
I have one too, so I'm curious.
Okay, perfect. All right, this is dependent on the injury. I'm sure that's why we both waited. This was our maybe guy if the others are ruled out kind of thing. But I'm throwing it back. I got to go back to Big Biz. Bismack Biyombo, right?
Oh.
If PJ, who is a game time decision, doesn't play, Zeller's already out. You got no choice.
Are the Hornets? I don't think are the Hornets playing tonight?
Oh, I guess they're not. Then when did I? I'm
going to check real quick. I think.
I don't. No, you're right. They're not. Or are they? I don't know where I've seen that.
No, wait.
Or are they? Or maybe they just said PJ hurt his ankle. I don't think they are.
No. Yeah, they're not playing tonight.
Okay. Something to monitor, which probably won't be the case, but if PJ misses time, Bismack, great center, he can fill in, play the role. And honestly, though, and no disrespect to PJ, I love him, but if they're forced to go away from the small ball a little bit, we don't know how long Cody Zeller could be out with this hip contusion. So, we've seen Bismack step in time and time again. He's one of those guys you might want to grab too. So. Yeah, no,
he'll be able to help out in boards and blocks specifically if that's what you're looking for there.
Yeah. As far as playing tonight, Alan, who are we potentially?
One name that I'm watching that we didn't touch on yet, contingent on whether or not this guy gets ruled out down in on Miami's roster. If Bam Adebayo doesn't play tonight, I'm looking at Precious Achiuwa.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be him and Kelly Olynyk splitting minutes down at center. Achiuwa has just been like this mountain of energy. Anytime he's out on the floor, he plays with a ton of effort, ton of energy. He crashes the glass. He's a terrific inside scorer. We've seen that he looks like we haven't really seen him with like a starter's load of minutes, but he's somewhat interesting if you're keeping an eye on the injury report in the lead up to that game and see Bam's ruled out. Roll the dice on Precious Achiuwa. See if he can help you out with boards, blocks, and field goal percentage. He even scores at a pretty high rate too. So he's an interesting name that I wanted to touch on, but we didn't ever hear about the Bam news. So I felt that there were better names to address there. But yeah, Achiuwa's the other interesting name perhaps tonight.
Yeah, that's a good call. He's one of those guys that we don't think about because obviously you got Bam, all-star player. He's holding down the front court as well as Olynyk and guys. But the minute he's ruled out, like you said, he's a guy. He's so much energy. He's a great defensive player. You never know what you're going to get from him. Really, just because he's all over the place, but he's guaranteed production. So if you need those blocks, steals, rebounds, good percentages, he can definitely deliver there. So, yeah, that's a great call.
Absolutely. Looks like we got one more question. I guess this will be our last one. And it's another Pistons one, so this is all you, man. Do you see Jeremy Grant as a sell or a hold? Seems like he's going to be sitting out back-to-backs rest of the season. Oh, wait, and real quick, Bam Adebayo was just ruled out. So Precious Achua, interesting streamer tonight. I'm not saying that I had any sway here. It didn't happen because I just mentioned it, but
I don't know. You served that one right up. That was impeccable. Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler's been ruled in, by the way. But I think Achua still is an interesting play tonight if you're looking for those big man stats. But anyway, yeah. What's your take on this question from Bobby?
Oh man. I will say I kind of understand, Bobby, where you're coming from, just because it's the Pistons. I'm sure they've been just overjoyed with how well Jeremy Grant's been playing this year. I think he was, very close to being an all-star. If the Pistons weren't so bad, he probably would have had his number called with, the injuries and guys who kind of filled in. So, I mean, that just speaks to how incredible of a season he's been having. He's been playing well. I mean, he's been around like a fourth-round value guy. He's been just incredible, right? Mm-hmm. My thing with that is the Pistons don't have anything to play for. We don't know if there could be any kind of minor injury that comes along later that really just caused them to exercise more caution with him, resting him on back-to-backs. You don't want to be paranoid about that, but I do think he's one of those guys that, since he's like a solidified top 40 guy, top 50 guy, if you can get someone who's maybe more of a sure bet who walks into that value, I don't hate it. I don't hate it making the trade, because here's the thing. The Pistons aren't going to compete for a playoff spot. The Pistons aren't going to be contenders, obviously. So if you can get somebody who has a solidified role on a good team and they get that same value, or maybe they're at a top 50, top 55, and they can push up to a top 40, then I don't hate it at all. Just because there's so much uncertainty with teams that have these great players that play on them. Are these guys going to be rested down the stretch? Is it going to be a quad injury like it is now? And then they're going to be rested on back-to-backs in other games. You'd hate that to happen to a guy who has been probably so impactful for your fantasy team all year. So, I mean, I'd start floating out offers. I would definitely explore. And if you can find that guy, I don't hate it at all, because towards the end of the fantasy playoffs and stuff, you could see a string of games he just doesn't play, and they could go into full development mode. And that could very well happen. So I'd rather be on the other side of that and having a guy who's top 40 or, around there, who can only get better and, feel a little bit more at peace of mind with it than, having Jeremy Grant and having him miss a bunch, and that ends up being a huge hit. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I can see the argument, because the Pistons are trying to kind of assure themselves that top 3 pick. Grant is, I feel like he's part of their youth movement, though. I mean, I guess, I don't know, unless he's making like a real push for most improved player, like, one of those things that you can, as a team, you would like to not only like stand right by your guy, but like they have incentive to show everyone, hey, we were totally right to give this guy this contract. I don't know if he's a back-to-back risk necessarily, but like,
no, I don't think so.
But I mean, I
think he's an end-of-season shutdown risk.
It's kind of a matter of I'm honestly, I think I'd hold, but sure. I mean, if you can find someone of comparable value, I would understand that as well.
What if somebody floated you out a Gordon Hayward?
I'd probably keep Grant.
You keep him,
Grant,
even with the risk of him being shut down.
Yeah, well, I mean, talk about risk of shut down. Gordon Hayward, the man can't go 20 games without his hand shattering. I mean, like he's
touche.
I mean, I'm trying to see where Grant ranks on the season. Yeah, he's 38th in 9-cat, whereas I don't know if I were to go and acquire maybe like a Chris Middleton. That'd be interesting if the stat set fits the needs. I mean, because both Buck starters are awfully consistent.
What if you could trade a Jeremy Grant and Keldon Johnson for Chris Middleton? And I think you might have seen that Paul George news that just came in.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm just looking at that now. Paul George with dizziness has been ruled out Thursday. I hope he's all right. Like, I hope it's not like some vertigo or something. That's kind of that's weird.
I think they're just getting creative with the designations now. You know,
I hope that's the case.
Yeah,
That's a weird one. Reggie Jackson starting in his place. He was a guy that I was looking at the top of the show while we were waiting on the Kawhi news, because we saw that he took a much larger role in the offense, and it appears that will be the case again tonight. So Reggie Jackson's, I'd say he's like a risky play if you're looking for points and assists, but he's a play tonight. I mean, it's 7:00 now. I don't know when that game tips, but if you're really looking for points, Reggie is a close call add, I guess, on your teams.
It's not the most fair thing that they did probably make that announcement with 15 seconds to make an acquisition, but
yeah, it's probably not on the cards.
Yeah. At the same time, Kawhi Leonard was pulled from the national anthem, so I'm sensing some strange coincidences here. But
interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all, that is that happens, I guess. Well, I hope that you were able to take some of the advice that we were able to impart at the earlier parts of the show. Pick up some interesting streamers tonight. Yeah. If you liked what we had tonight, please drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Really appreciate that as always. Marcus, where can the good people find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Braden, Braden, Marcus, Marcus, and on Twitter at Mark_Anthony35 as titled there. So yeah, please shoot me a follow. Any fantasy questions you may have, I'm always readily available, happy to help out. Same with Alan and all of our other pros. So definitely don't be a stranger. And yeah, hey, Alan, looks like we have one more question that kind of snuck in there. Maybe we can just hit this real quick.
Yeah, why not?
Looks like Jay said, hey guys, should I move Fred VanVleet and Keldon for AD in a 12-team 9-cat? Made it through NERC, CJ and Smart emails in 8th place.
I mean, like they're totally different players between Fred VanVleet and AD. Like the skill sets that you're getting back there. Man, I think I'd rather have Fred VanVleet. Just the uncertainty with AD and how they're going to treat him down the stretch might I don't think it's impossible that we're going to see some load management, either in the form of like resting back-to-backs or just in-game managing of minutes. Mm-hmm. Fred VanVleet's just been amazing this year. Like I get it if you need the blocks. It's just, I don't know. I think I'm not. It's not like Keldon's like I'm not crazy about him either. I just think I prefer. I prefer Freddie.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, he's been so good this year.
Yeah,
and it's really one of those if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of things. Because guys, this is the name of the game in fantasy basketball. The name-worthy players. Trading for the name, looking at the name. And I'm not saying AD's not elite. He was projected top 2 in a tier of his own with James Harden. AD's still that player. He's going to get better. Mm-hmm. But you guys, we know how it is when AD deals with injuries. And this is different because the Lakers won last year. They're going to take all the precautions necessary to make sure that he's healthy, he's ready to go in the postseason. And that takes precedence to any regular season game and the impact it's going to have in the regular season. So with that in mind, that's where I say, just hold on to it. It's easy to be tempted. Really, it's more kudos to the AD owner that he's just trying to, get what he can because he probably has his own reservations about that, I'm sure. But if you have FVV, I would hold out. Keldon Johnson's been very solid too, despite everyone coming back. And if DeMar DeRozan gets traded and LaMarcus Aldridge especially, that only boosts Keldon's value, who was a top 60 player earlier. So when I look at it that way and the potential of what could be, I'd definitely rather have those two than AD. So I think I would hold tight there.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. No, that isn't. I don't know why I just blanked on that phrase, but yeah, man, I think you got what we were getting at.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. I think that'll wrap it up. You guys can follow me on Twitter, the handle down there, and follow HoopBall Fantasy on Twitter too at HoopBall Fantasy, HoopBall Fantasy, and check it. You keep your eye out on us during the All-Star break. Again, maybe something pops up, maybe not. But till then, we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Always a pleasure. Enjoy the 9-game slate tonight and all the All-Star festivities this weekend. And, maybe or maybe not. Just keep an eye out. We could have something happening. But as always, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
See y'all.